You know what remains of an $8 million dream? Not much. An empty lot that was supposed to be the home of the Fielders Stadium in Zion, Illinois. The location of what might be the worst run professional sports franchise in American history. You think your favorite team has problems? You think your front office is incompetent? Let me tell you about a team so spectacularly mismanaged that their radio announcer quit live on air. Their manager resigned via email in the middle of a game, and they once fielded a lineup of pitchers playing every position because the actual players refused to take the field. This is the story of the Lake County Fielders, a team that had Kevin Costner as an owner, a Hollywood ending written in their DNA, and absolutely everything that could go wrong. It's a tale of municipal corruption, financial fraud, on-field humiliation, and how one small Illinois town spent millions of dollars to become the laughingstock of professional baseball. Is this heaven? No. This is Illinois, and it's about to become hell. Chapter 1, The Setup, Dreams of Grandeur. Our story begins in Zion, Illinois, a working-class suburb of about 26,000 people sitting on the shores of Lake Michigan, just north of Chicago. In 2009, Zion was a city in crisis. The ComEd nuclear power plant, Zion's largest employer and tax base, had closed, leaving the city facing potential losses of up to $17 million a year in property tax revenue. City leaders were desperate for something, anything to revive their community's fortunes. Enter Richard Ehrenreich, a Deerfield attorney and sports entrepreneur with big dreams. He pitched city officials on something that sounded too good to be true: a professional minor league baseball team called the Lake County Fielders, complete with an $18 million, 8,000-seat stadium featuring luxury suites, a water slide, and a year-round restaurant. But Ehrenreich had an ace up his sleeve that made his proposal irresistible. Kevin Costner, the Academy Award-winning actor and star of Field of Dreams, Bull Durham, and For the Love of the Game, was coming on board as a part owner. For Zion officials, this must have felt like a miracle. Here was a chance to replace their lost industrial base with something that could bring jobs, tourism, and national attention. City Economic Development Director Delane Rogers became the project's biggest cheerleader, calling herself the head cheerleader, dreamer, and Zion Rocks chick. In early 2010, the deal was struck. The city would build the stadium using tax increment financing and revenue bonds. The team would pay rent and bring baseball to Lake County. What could go wrong? Chapter 2, The First Red Flags. By the spring of 2010, it became clear that the stadium wouldn't be ready for opening day, or even close to ready. In fact, construction had barely begun. The Fielders were forced to start their inaugural 2010 season playing home games at Carthage College in Kenosha, Wisconsin, which is about 45 minutes away from their supposed home territory. Behind the scenes, Ehrenreich was already panicking. In January 2010 emails obtained by investigators, he wrote, "If we don't have firm financing and a public announcement this upcoming week, I just don't know how we're going to pull this off. I'd rather field a travel team in 2011, lose $200,000 and look at my options for 2012, then continue to flounder and lose another $600,000 on this project in 2011. But Rogers and other city officials kept reassuring him. "Don't worry," they said, "we'll build you a temporary facility for 2010, and the permanent facility will be ready for 2011. Trust us." What they built was, let's be generous and call it rustic. Picture a county fair that decided to host professional baseball. Temporary bleachers, portable toilets, trailer locker rooms, and concession stands that were literally tents. But on July 23, 2010, Kevin Costner showed up to flip the switch on stadium lights, and for a brief shining moment, it felt like magic. The Field of Dreams had come to Illinois. Chapter 3, The Illusion of Success. Incredibly, despite the ramshackle facilities, the 2010 season was actually successful. The Fielders drew an average of 3,500 fans per game, including myself. Fantastic for an independent league team. Costner's star power worked. Families came out for the novelty, the atmosphere, and the chance to see movie royalty. The team played decent baseball, and the fans had fun. And for one glorious summer, it seemed like the dream might actually work. Sure, the facilities were temporary, but everyone understood that 2011 would bring the real stadium. As the 2010 season ended, spirits were high. Ehrenreich was cautiously optimistic. City officials were planning groundbreaking ceremonies, and fans were buying season tickets for 2011. City officials even had construction equipment brought to the site to make it look like the work was about to begin on the permanent stadium. It was all for show, though. It was an elaborate charade to keep the dream alive for one more season. Chapter 4: The 2011 disaster begins. Spring 2011 arrived and there was no stadium, not even close. The temporary facility from 2010 had become completely dismantled and construction on the permanent stadium never actually began. This created an unprecedented problem. The Lake County Fielders had no home. They were forced to start the 2011 season with a 32-game road trip that would take them across the Pacific Ocean to Hawaii, then to Arizona, then to Canada, then back to Hawaii, and then to California. For context, this wasn't a big league team with charter flights and 5-star hotels. These were minor league players making $600 a month, flying commercial, and staying in budget motels. The team was asking them to spend 2 months living out of a suitcase while playing in places most of them had never heard of. It got worse. During the road trip, players discovered that their team-issued debit cards weren't working. They couldn't buy food, they couldn't pay for basic necessities. Some players started skipping meals, surviving on peanut butter and jelly sandwiches in the clubhouse. The situation became so dire that players' mothers were calling the front office to complain that their sons couldn't afford to eat. Chapter 5: The Return to Zion and Disaster. In July 2011, the Fielders finally returned to Zion. The city had rebuilt the temporary stadium on the same site, but it was clear that this was just a band-aid solution. The promised permanent stadium was nowhere to be seen. Players who had been promised a professional facility found themselves changing in trailers with showers that worked sometimes. The visiting team had to use portable toilets. The concession stands were still tents. Team president Ehrenreich later described the situation: with no stadium, it created a cash flow crisis. It created a morale problem with the players, who were all told they were coming home to a stadium, and when they showed up, their lockers were trailers with showers that worked sometimes. It wasn't fair to our organization to put us through that. The extended road trip had drained the team's finances. Ehrenreich started bouncing checks to the city for rent. Players weren't getting paid on time. The whole operation was held together with duct tape and false promises. Chapter 6: The Meltdown Begins. On July 9th, 2011, everything came crashing down. The Fielders were scheduled to host Jose Canseco's Yuma Scorpions for what should have been a normal game. Instead, it became one of the most bizarre contests in professional baseball history. Just hours before the game, manager Tim Johnson, a former MLB manager who had once led the Toronto Blue Jays, discovered that the latest round of paychecks hadn't arrived. He'd had enough. In the middle of the pre-game preparations, Johnson sent an email to the front office resigning his position. Then he walked out of the stadium and never returned. When the players learned what happened, 11 of them staged a boycott, refusing to take the field in support of their unpaid manager. The team that was supposed to play the Scorpions had essentially ceased to exist. This left hitting coach Pete Lecoq, whose last name would prove prophetic, in charge of trying to field a team with whoever was left. What happened next was either brilliant improvisation or complete insanity, depending on your perspective. Chapter 7: The Pitcher's Game. With most of his position players on strike, Lecoq made a decision that defied every convention of professional baseball. He would field a lineup consisting entirely of pitchers playing out of position. Picture this: the starting shortstop was normally a relief pitcher. The center fielder usually threw from the bullpen. The catcher had never caught a professional game in his life. Jose Canseco, the former Oakland A's slugger and steroid whistleblower, was managing the opposing Yuma Scorpions. When he saw what the Fielders were doing, he decided to respond in kind. He put his own pitchers in the field and took the mound himself. What followed was a surreal spectacle, a game featuring a major former league star, Jose Canseco, pitching knuckleballs against a team of professional pitchers who had no idea how to play their assigned positions. Incredibly, only 2 errors were committed in the entire game. Canseco pitched the Scorpions to an 8-3 victory using mainly knuckleballs, and the Fielders' makeshift team somehow kept it competitive. After the game, Pete Lecoq, who had just managed one of the weirdest contests in baseball history, resigned. He was done dealing with Richard Ehrenreich and the chaos surrounding the team. Chapter 8, The Radio Announcer's Meltdown. A week later, the Lake County Fielders achieved a new level of infamy when their radio play-by-play announcer became the center of a viral sensation for all the wrong reasons. Kumar Zaman had been the voice of the Fielders, calling games on WKRS-AM with professionalism despite the chaos surrounding the team. But on July 15, 2011, he reached his breaking point. After calling the final out of another Fielder loss, Zaman didn't sign off with the usual pleasantries. Instead, he launched into a 4-minute on-air resignation that quickly went viral across the internet. They didn't pay me all the money owed to me, and that's why I'm leaving right now. In my opinion, those in charge really don't care, and they don't give a damn. My problem is I care too much. I did not need this job, and because of the circumstances that affected former coaches, former players, and myself, I do not want this job anymore. Good night, and good luck. The audio clip spread across sports websites, blogs, and social media. ESPN picked it up. NBC Sports covered it. And suddenly, the Lake County Fielders were famous for being spectacularly dysfunctional. Zaman walked away from the microphone and never returned. The team was left scrambling to find new announcers, but by this point, the list of people willing to work for the Fielders was getting very short. Chapter 9, The Collapse Accelerates. By August 2011, the Lake County Fielders had become a traveling circus of dysfunction. Attendance had plummeted from 3,500 per game to a few hundred diehard fans and curious onlookers coming to witness the disaster. On August 3rd, the team reached a new low when a home game against the Calvary Vipers was suspended after just 1.5 innings because the umpires discovered the Fielders were using inferior recreational baseballs that they had apparently bought at a local sporting goods store. Players, coaches, and even the mascot started filing lawsuits against Aaron Reich's company to try to recover unpaid wages. The PA announcer, Gregory Copen, sued and won a judgment when the team officials failed to show up to court hearings. For their final 19 games of the season, the professional Lake County Fielders stopped playing professional teams altogether. Instead, they played against the Kenosha County Fielders, a semi-professional team assembled just to give the Lake County Fielders opponents. The last game in the Lake County Fielders history was played in front of 125 fans with a roster so depleted that the team could barely field 9 players. The radio announcer, whoever was left, couldn't identify players by name because the roster had changed so much. Chapter 10, The Municipal Corruption Angle. While the team was imploding on the field, an even bigger scandal was brewing in City Hall. NBC's Chicago investigation would later reveal a web of potentially corrupt relationships between city officials and private developers. The land where the stadium was supposed to be built was owned by Richard Delisle, a developer who had close ties to the city. Delisle owned 23 acres zoned for commercial development, but had built nothing except a drugstore. Most shocking were the romantic emails discovered between the economic developer director, Delane Rogers, and developer Delisle. NBC Chicago found emails where Rogers wrote to Delisle, "It seems a lifetime since I kissed you. Never enough." Just weeks after the stadium project collapsed, Rogers left her city job and immediately went to work for Delisle at a Best Western hotel he had just built downtown with city TIF funding. Adding to the ethical questions, attorney Scott Puma was simultaneously serving as Zion City Attorney, defending the city in the Fielders lawsuit, and serving as treasurer for Mayor Lane Harrison's campaign committee. Chapter 11, The Financial Autopsy. NBC Chicago's investigation revealed the staggering financial cost of the Fielders fiasco. Despite never building a permanent stadium, local taxpayers spent almost $8 million on the project. Land preparation and temporary facilities, $1.3 million. Equipment purchases and staging, $2.1 million. Consulting and legal fees, $1.8 million. Infrastructure and utilities, $1.9 million. Other miscellaneous costs, $800,000. Total, $7.9 million. For context, several successful minor league stadiums were built around the same time for $8 to $12 million total. Zion spent nearly that much and got nothing but an empty field. Today, the site sits empty except for some rusted light poles and a backstop. Weeds have grown over what was once supposed to be a professional baseball diamond. Chapter 12, The Lawsuits and Blame Game. The collapse of the Fielders triggered a cascade of lawsuits that would drag on for years. Ehrenreich's company, Grand Slam Sports and Entertainment, sued the city for more than $10 million, alleging fraud and breach of contract. They claimed city officials intentionally misled them about the stadium construction and had conflicts of interest with the land developer. The city countersued for $340,000 in unpaid rent from the 2 seasons that the team operated there. Individual players filed smaller suits trying to recover unpaid wages. The team's bat boy sued, even the mascot filed a lawsuit. The legal battles finally ended in May 2015 when both sides agreed to a settlement. The city paid Ehrenreich's company $55,000, a fraction of what they sought, but still an admission that something had gone terribly wrong. Chapter 13: The Human Cost. Beyond the financial and legal aftermath, the real tragedy of the Lake County Fielders was the human cost, the young players whose dreams were crushed by adult incompetence. These weren't millionaire athletes. These were young men making $600 a month, chasing their dreams of making it to the major leagues. They trusted that the adults running the organization would at least meet basic professional standards. Instead, they found themselves skipping meals, unable to cash paychecks, and playing in facilities that wouldn't have been acceptable for a high school team. Tim Johnson, the former MLB manager who quit mid-season, later said, "I've been in professional baseball for 30 years, and I've never seen anything like this. These kids deserved better." Pete Lecoq was even more direct. "Rich Ehrenreich is a bad man. He's got no respect for the game of baseball, no respect for the players. He's a scumbag. Quote me on that." Chapter 14: The Broader Implications. The Lake County Fielders' collapse came during a broader contraction in independent baseball. From 2008 to 2012, the number of independent teams dropped from 64 to 52, with entire leagues folding. The 2008 financial crisis had hit independent baseball particularly hard. Corporate sponsorships dried up, attendance declined, and marginal operations like the Fielders were exposed as unsustainable. The Fielders' disaster also served as a cautionary tale for other cities considering similar projects. Multiple leaders across the country pointed to Zion as an example of how not to pursue economic development through sports. Economists had long warned that minor league baseball rarely generates the economic benefits that cities expect, but the Fielders took that to an extreme. All the costs with none of the benefits. Chapter 15: Kevin Costner's Silence. Throughout this entire debacle, one figure remained conspicuously silent: Kevin Costner. The Academy Award winner had been the face of the franchise, the celebrity owner whose involvement gave the project credibility and media attention. His image appeared on team websites, promotional materials, and marketing campaigns. After his one appearance in 2010 to turn on the lights, Costner never returned to Zion. As the team collapsed around him, he said nothing publicly. When contacted by ESPN, NBC, and other media outlets during the team's collapse, Costner's representatives declined all requests for comment. His publicist simply stated that the actor would not discuss the situation. Legal documents show that Costner was listed as a minority partner in Grand Slam Sports and Entertainment, but the exact nature of his financial involvement and his role in the team's operations remains unclear. What we do know is that after the Fielders folded, Costner stayed away from baseball investments. The man who once said, "If you build it, they will come," learned that sometimes, even if you build it, it can fail after all. Chapter 16: The Lasting Damage. More than a decade later, the site where the Fielders Stadium was supposed to be built remains empty. Zion never recovered from the loss of its nuclear plant, and the Fielders fiasco made it much harder for the city to attract future development. The failed project became a symbol of municipal incompetence that haunted the city for years. As the Chicago Tribune wrote in 2015, "It's unlikely Lake County will ever again have minor league baseball. We can blame the Fielders fiasco for that." While cities like Gary, Indiana, successfully maintained independent leagues through competent management and realistic expectations, Lake County became synonymous with how not to run professional sports franchises. Chapter 17: The Lessons Learned. The Lake County Fielders disaster offers several clear lessons for anyone considering a similar venture. Lesson 1: Expertise matters. As Gary Railcats observer Mike Ossoff noted, running an independent minor league baseball team is unlike running any other business, no matter how successful. Lesson number 2: Corporate support must be secured first. About 25% of independent team revenue comes from corporate sponsorships, which need to be in place before the first game. Lesson 3: Municipal ownership reduces risk. Teams that lease municipally owned stadiums have much better survival rates than those dependent on private stadium deals. Lesson 4. Realistic financial planning. Independent baseball can generate small profits, but it requires careful cost control and modest expectations. Lesson 5. Community engagement over celebrity marketing. Successful teams build grassroots support through consistent community involvement, not celebrity ownership gimmicks. Chapter 18. The ripple effects. One of the cruel ironies of the Fielders' disaster is that Lake County, Illinois sits just across the border from Lake County, Ohio, home to the successful Lake County Captains, a Cleveland Guardians affiliate. The Captains play in a proper baseball stadium, pay their players on time, and have been a stable presence in their community since 2003. They even won the Midwest League Championship in 2024. The contrast couldn't be starker. Two counties with nearly identical names, separated by less than 300 miles, with completely opposite baseball experiences. The Captains are an affiliated team backed by Major League Baseball's Cleveland organization, while the Fielders were an independent team dependent on the competence of local ownership and management. Chapter 19. Where are they now? So what happened to the key players in this debacle? Richard Ehrenreich continues to practice law in the Chicago area but has stayed away from sports ownership ventures. Kevin Costner has remained silent about the Fielders and has not invested in baseball since. Delane Rogers worked for Richard Delisle's hotel company for several years before leaving the area entirely. Mayor Lane Harrison served out his term but chose not to run for re-election. Kumar Zaman gained the internet fame for his on-air resignation, but it ultimately hurt his broadcasting career. Few teams wanted to hire an announcer known for publicly criticizing his employers. Tim Johnson returned to coaching in other organizations, but always listed the Chicago County Fielders as the worst situation he encountered in professional baseball. Pete Lecoq occasionally tells the story of the pitcher's game at baseball events, usually to the incredulous audiences who can't believe it actually happened. The ghost of dreams deferred. There's a famous line from Field of Dreams: "People will come, Ray. They'll come to Iowa for reasons they can't even fathom." And you know what? People did come to Zion. In 2010, families drove from across northern Illinois and southern Wisconsin to see professional baseball in their backyard. Kids wore Fielders caps and collected autographs. Parents bought season tickets and planned their summers around the team schedule. For one magical summer, it worked. The dream was real. Baseball had come to Lake County, and the community embraced it with an enthusiasm that made all the temporary facilities and amateur hour operations forgivable. But dreams require more than good intentions and celebrity endorsements. They require competent management, honest dealing, and respect for the people who believe in them. The Lake County Fielders lasted 2 seasons, costing taxpayers $8 million, and gave us one of the most spectacular organizational failures in sports history. But at least they gave us great stories to tell.